Okay, welcome my friends to the show that never ends, and here we are again then, and another weekend has gone where Kieran came home with his brother and was able to participate in the joys of Wycombe Wanderers at Adams Park for a great, terrific 0-0 draw. Now, we'll talk about all the pluses and minuses of that 0-0 draw. We'll also discuss an interesting little topic we have for you today, which is how shot locations have changed in the Premier League, and when we all go, shoot, does it really make much difference, and what's the chances of actually the ball going in the net when we do? A bit like when we all shout, "Whoa," and he passes it sideways, does the goalkeeper? Does it really make any difference? And does he fall over just getting ready to kick the ball out? Not really. The music today, I'm going to quickly explain the music today, and then we'll move on to the Wycombe. The music that you will hear at some point in the background whenever it sort of turns up, and I'll mention it, is from an album called The Art of Losing. The limited edition has just come out by somebody called the Anchoress. That obviously isn't her real name. I can't even remember her real name actually. Here we go. Catherine Ann Davis is her real name. This album came out I think 2020, and it got an awful lot of pluses from places like the Sunday, ended up in the Sunday Times albums of 21, Welsh Music Prize nominated, Prog Magazine Album of the Year, BBC Six Music Album of the Year. Elton John even said one of my favourite records of the year. So what, must be good if Elton John thinks so. Anyway, yeah, so that's the Anchoress and the album The Art of Losing. This is if they allow it to be played. It's on a record label that I'm not sure will allow it to be played, but we'll wait and see. You can, of course, buy that off of Bandcamp and all the normal places. Have a listen on YouTube. Have a listen on Spotify. The Anchoress, The Art of Losing. This is the expanded edition. Wycombe Wanderers. Let's hit off Wycombe Wanderers, because there's not been any managers sacked, Kieran. No managers sacked.
Oh no!
The last one was Bielsa. Was the last manager to be sacked in the Football League.
Well, we're just very nice in this country at the moment, evidently, aren't we?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. A real bore. So, Wycombe Wanderers, go for it.
It was all right. Great to be back. Loved all of the fans chanting our name, like MJT's podcast, and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That was great. Because obviously not many of them have actually seen me before. But for the game, not a horrendous amount happens, we have to say.
I watched the highlights, and I thought that the highlights were more exciting when I was there than when I saw them on TV. I didn't realise how drab the highlights actually were.
Yeah, they were, the chances they showed in the highlights were nowhere near, kind of going in sort of thing. No. I don't know what Rotherham really were there for. Like, because they played it as though they were wanting a draw, a 0-0 draw, and that's what they got, because they didn't really, we weren't bad, they weren't horrific, just no one seemed to particularly want to go for it. I think we were probably a bit cautious in the way we were playing, just because
the first half, both teams. I mean, you could have actually taken the first 45 minutes and dumped them, and so we just turned up for 45 minutes, couldn't we? We would have been better off in the beer tent for that 45 minutes, and then just turned up for the second half.
The one notable chance that you thought may have led to something was we didn't realise this when we were watching it there, to be fair, but Vokes' header in the first half, he does actually have quite a bit of space, and he's right in front of the goal when he puts it over. So I'd say that was probably the one chance of the game where you thought that something might actually happen.
Yeah.
Apart from that, didn't feel as though Rotherham were anywhere near scoring.
No.
They had one little flurry at the end where they were nearly in, but not really. And we had a couple of opportunities that we were pretty close with, but at the end of the day, I think if you'd given us a 0-0 draw against Rotherham, I think we probably would have taken it, because conceding goals has not been our strong suit recently, and we did that against the top of the table. So whatever we did, we nullified what their game plan was, if they were going there to win, that is.
They didn't go there to win, did they?
Didn't seem like it at all.
The guy Smith.
I know. Yeah.
Michael Smith, their centre forward.
Non-existent.
Not really, was he? He was difficult to keep hold of between the two centre backs. I mean, they did sort of have to chase him around a little bit, but he never really was a threat, was he?
No, they never.
He even was less of a threat in the second half than he was the first.
I mean, the two players I think that stood out for Wycombe, not necessarily for being the best on there, just for the amount they were involved, was probably Horgan and Mehmeti. I mean, we're obviously going to compare to what they've done previous. Horgan, I thought, was pretty good. He nearly created one for Hanlon, and he put in some dangerous little balls down the left-hand side, so he was decent. Mehmeti, in terms of in a positional sense and getting the opportunity there, was good. It was his final shot that let him down.
Weak and pathetic.
The one shot he did have definitely was, and then the one in which he was shouting out for a penalty, in which we couldn't really tell at the time. I'm not sure the ref could really. I don't think it probably was at the end of the day, but yeah.
He could do with going to the gym, couldn't he?
It's not even that. It's just getting a decent amount of power onto the ball.
He needs to practice kicking the ball hard, really.
Yeah, it's just a technique thing, and I'm sure there's a thing of he's right in front of the home end, and he's got to hit the ball as hard as he can into a certain corner, and the whole surroundings just put him off. And he doesn't put any power into it. He's a bit like Rashford in that sense. But I mean, as I say, there was the two players really that only stood out in the whole game for me, really. No one else seems to do anything major. Everyone else just kind of drifted through. So
yes. I mean, there was no sort of okay. We'll start with the negatives. Is always the best bet, I think. Gives you more to talk about. Any of those players you thought lacked, apart from Mehmeti, who we did think sort of seemed to lack a little bit. Shame, because he did an awful lot, just it never was going to come to anything. No, we won't start. Let's just talk through. I agree about Horgan. I thought he was good. I thought he played well. Snag there was never anybody in the box for the ball he put in. If that was Wycombe played it the same over and over, didn't they? Was it a weak point, or had they sort of written the rules of what they were going to do? And they come down the left, got to the line, put the ball across about 3 foot, 4 foot, 4 foot, straight across the face of the goal, and nobody was ever standing.
It was the balls that were put in that you expect Hanlon to get on the end of as opposed to a Vokes. Vokes is going to stand towards the back post for every single thing. He's not going to run across the first man. And unfortunately, the balls put in were across the first man.
Who wasn't playing.
And Hanlon came on too late for those opportunities to arise. And
were we playing football for two up front when we only had one?
I'm not sure two up front because I said to Eugene again, I don't think Vokes did enough in terms of trying to hold the ball up and winning headers against their centre backs because that is supposedly what he's had to do. And I don't think he did it enough. Like he was like a constant threat to the centre backs, and he was occupying the centre backs. But I'm not sure it was decent enough to like because I suppose what he's supposed to is like lay off the ball to the three behind him, Mehmeti, McCleary, and Mahorgan. And that didn't really happen enough, especially in the first half. Second half happened a bit more because I think Mehmeti had a bit more space down the left. But yeah, it may well have suited Hanlon on from the beginning, to be honest with you.
Yeah, don't know that until it happens.
No, they've never tried that, have they? Whether they've had the three in behind and Hanlon up front. So don't know how that would work out.
No, would he win the headers?
He wouldn't win the headers particularly, but
so it would change the system entirely, wouldn't it?
Yeah, which is probably worth, because Vokes wasn't exactly winning many of the headers either. So,
but we were playing Rotherham, and that's what they do, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if we played that system of keeping the ball on the floor, that may well have suited Rotherham a bit more. So who knows at the end of the day?
I have to say about the ball in the air, boom, 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 boom.
It was up there an awful lot.
It was in the air an awful lot. And this was where it's all well and fine winning the headers, the back line winning the headers. But if all they're doing is going to theirs and back again, there was a definite lack of skill with the ball on the ground from the back line, I felt. Yeah, of course. I always think whenever it's get the ball on the ground, I'm thinking, well, actually, if it's that high up in the air, you don't have a choice but to head it. It would just be nice if they could head it in the right direction, maybe, or to a Wycombe player. Vokes does that. Vokes actually directs his headers, but the back line didn't. It was just banging it up front and for it to come back again. And I just wish somebody was able to take it down on the chest or at least head it to a Wycombe player might have been helpful, but it just didn't. It was a bit, and I don't think that was just Wycombe's fault. I think Rotherham are similar, but I did feel they're top of the league, and I don't think, I think if they're going up, they're coming down again, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why they do come down every year. And I think our style of play to begin with, when we used to play, we'll call it hoofball. It wasn't hoofball, but we'll call it that. That just doesn't work in the Championship if you want to stay up. And that seemed to be what Rotherham were doing, and it won't work.
No, they'll be bottom of the league again, won't they?
Yeah, and I don't think there was some of their players that I thought they're not very good. I have no idea what his name was, but they're number 20. Like a better team would have had a look at him and taken advantage of him because the way that he was moving and kind of passing the ball about was not convincing.
You have to pick the one that I can't pronounce, don't you?
Probably, yeah.
His name is actually Hickwe. It's Ihiekwwe. Hickwe, something like that. Hickwe. Yeah. 29 years old, centre back.
Yeah, he wasn't convincing at all. He may well not be their main centre back, but he was not convincing.
No, touches 59, so he had enough of the ball. Yeah, he wasn't very good, was he? He did stand out as not being very good. I thought, what about Wing? Finally, I get to see him play after he's had a few games and fitted into the team. And so it was interesting to see him in a full game to actually get. I mean, to be fair, that was a hard game, but this was the game where I would actually see him play, if you like.
Yeah.
What did I think to him? I thought he was all right. I wouldn't jump up and down. Played next to Scowen. Yeah, I suppose they worked together. I think they'll work better not against Rotherham. I can see playing teams in the bottom half of Division 1. I would think he can play the ball, can't he?
Mm.
I mean, I think his skill on the ball is very good.
He's evidently got a bit about him. I mean, I said to you, I think it's very difficult to judge any of the players really on Saturday, because even the Rotherham players, everyone was a 6 out of 10, no more, no less. There was nothing that anyone did that thought, oh, that's really good or that's really bad, to suggest they should be any higher or lower. So as we say that, and it probably sounds a bit exaggerative, but it really was just like, you got to the end of the game, it's just like, oh well,
that's that.
Oh, that's all right.
It was all right. The game was all right. It was thrilling. Yeah. It wasn't. I mean, it was all right. You know,
and no one did anything particularly of note. So
it's a sort of game. Had that been a game at Christmas, I would have been perfectly happy if we weren't trying to get muscle in there into the top 6. I would have been perfectly happy with that game. Going away with a 0-0, it was a fighter to get away with a point off of the top team in Division 1. And that's exactly what we did do. Wasn't the best sort of Liverpool versus Arsenal pass it around game.
No.
What I want to know, though, is on my little piece of paper here, where they give them points. Interesting that we said about Vokes not playing very well, because they gave him the lowest score in the Wycombe team, that is, and they gave him a 6.1. But the player they gave player of the match to was Stockdale. Any idea why?
I suppose he didn't do anything wrong per se, did he?
4 saves, it said. 1 diving save, 1 punch.
Oh, he didn't miss anything, and he did save everything, and he pushed it out when he needed to.
Yeah, and he made no mistakes, couldn't he?
Yeah, and that's probably why he's won it. I wouldn't have said it was anything special though. What rating did they give him?
Gave him 8.
8's a bit optimistic.
Yeah.
He was a 6 or a 7, I guess.
Yeah.
It's one of those where if he doesn't save the shots that faced him, then you'd give him a 5 sort of thing, 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Because he did what he had to.
I have to be honest and say Tafazoli, I thought, played really well. He stuck his body in the way a few times, made quite a few blocks, etc. I like him. I think he's actually one of the best players we got. Stewart, didn't think he had such a great game. See, I was a bit worried about him. Not usually, but I was a bit worried. And also, but I do also have to say I did cheer when Stuart scored a goal until I realised it hit the side netting.
Yeah, as did everyone else, to be fair.
Yeah, very disappointed I was when I discovered that hadn't gone in. Who was the better team, do you think?
I think you would say Wycombe.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought Wycombe looked better than
I think we looked better. Whether we deserved the win, I don't know, but we definitely had more of the decent possession in and around their box, especially in the second half. And on another day, you could have just snatched a 1-0.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Kieran, how did you get on with your betting, by the way? How much money did you put on?
£4.
You put £4 on that game.
Yeah. Well, Nathan was certain it was going to happen.
And what was it you needed to happen?
So I needed Wycombe to win, both teams to score 4 corners each and 2 bookings each.
And what did you actually get?
I'm not sure. I think
Nothing.
Rotherham got the corners and the yellow cards, but that was it.
Right.
So
a bad gamble. We'll call that one then.
I haven't done it in ages.
£4.
But...
And can I just ask, this £4?
Yeah.
Is that from the money I give you every month for university?
Nah, that's the money I've earned from grandma.
Right. I just checking to see where my money goes. That was all.
I haven't done it in ages. I haven't done it in ages.
Any of you out there, children, please do not gamble like Kieran gambles and just throw your money on Wycombe winning.
I was just going to say, please ask the bill payer's permission, but I just realised that's you.
Yes, I don't remember you asking me for permission. Right. I think. Oh dear, I've accidentally pressed keeping fit. I don't know why I pressed that. Don't use that channel. Rest of the league, in fact, then. So we have a quick butchers. The rest of the league, what occurred yesterday. It was really rather bog standard, wasn't it? This is why Wycombe have got a problem and why we're not. I think we're going to have trouble. In the end, if you go into the top sides, I mean, going down all these scores, the first one you hit where one of the teams we need to lose is Plymouth. They won. They beat Bolton 1-0. Then we go to MK Dons and Wigan, and that's a draw. And then we go to Sheffield Wednesday, who win, go to Oxford, who win, Sunderland, who win. So that's our problem, isn't it? There was not one team from getting a point did we catch up on.
No.
In fact, we only got further behind.
Yeah, despite drawing against the league leaders, which is pretty demoralising.
Yeah. So we actually got no nearer catching anybody up. We only got further behind. And in fact, we are now 8th in the league, which is... and we've got Ipswich and Portsmouth knocking on our door, haven't we? I mean, especially Portsmouth, I think.
Well, if we beat them next week, then we should be all right, shouldn't we? It does look unlikely from here, but I mean, as we know in this league, there's a lot of teams that can go on losing streaks or winning streaks, and there's no reason why we can't.
Well, Rotherham, let's start at the top and look at their form, shall we? I mean, Rotherham are doing not that brilliant, actually. in the sense of they drew that. They lost against MK Dons. They drew, as we go further back, they drew against Shrewsbury. But they did then beat Plymouth and Morecambe and then drew against Wigan. So it's not the best form for the team at the top, is it? I mean, that's hardly sort of proving yourself, is it?
No.
There's a lot of draws in there. In the last 7 matches, they've drawn 4 of them.
Just so proves that even the top teams can go on pretty dire ruts.
Whereas Wigan, on the other hand, Wigan don't seem to be doing so well either. I mean, they lost against Sunderland. They've drawn against MK Dons. They drew against Wigan. Although, on the other hand, they have just played all the top teams. So all their games in hand was Rotherham, Wycombe, Sunderland, MK Dons were their games in hand. And they could afford not to win them, of course, which they didn't win all of them. So although they were miles in front, they'd got loads of games in hand. They're now actually 4 points behind Rotherham with only 2 games in hand. And yet, at one point, they looked like they were off. You know, they were going to win the world. MK Dons, well, they've got the same amount of points as Wigan, although play 3 games more. But as we've just looked at, Wigan, all their games in hand, it's all went fine, but you got to win them. Oxford, don't want Oxford to go. Who do I want to go up out of? I mean, the truth is, you probably Rotherham and Wigan will still go up.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it's MK Dons, Oxford, Sunderland, Plymouth, and Sheffield Wednesday. If we pretend it's not Wycombe, okay. Out of that lot, we keep saying. I mean, do you think? I mean, any of them. It's any of them, isn't it? One of them.
Actually, we don't like Plymouth, do we?
Well, I don't like any of them, but that's because I'm a Wycombe fan, so I'm not. Yeah. I only love losing teams, and they're winning. So, in all honesty, okay, Sunderland. What I think of Sunderland, they would probably be the only team, along with Sheffield Wednesday, that really stand any chance of going up and staying up. I'm not sure Sunderland, simply because I'm not sure they're well looked after. And I know that's based on a Netflix program, but from what you read and what you hear, and you have to presume they're not well managed, otherwise they would have gone up before.
Yeah. I mean, they should go up the team they have at the moment. They're just underperforming.
Yeah, Sheffield Wednesday have to be the team that go back up.
Because their form isn't that great.
But can you imagine if that happens, where Rotherham, Wigan and Sheffield Wednesday go up? What a waste of time. But I wonder whether MK Dons would manage in the Championship.
I think they'd have potential to. I don't think Oxford was because of their manager. MK Dons, though, you get the impression they have some sort of infrastructure that would allow them to stay up.
Yeah, and their stadium was pretty decent. Actually, it's just empty. And I wonder if they went up, they could then slowly start to fill it. I wonder. Maybe they would stand a chance. I agree with you. I think as long as they've got the clown as the manager, I think they won't. It's all well and fine having these great rules, and he's got a real chip on his shoulder, though, hasn't he? About the style of football, and that was why Bielsa failed, because of the same hang up about only playing one style of football. I think managers need to adapt, and I think the guy at MK Dons, what's his name?
Robinson.
Right. I think is that his name?
Carl Robinson, yeah.
No, MK Dons.
Oh, no idea.
I'm trying to think of the guy's name. You said
Liam Manning.
Right, Liam Manning. Where's he been before, to start interest? Because you looking it up? Yeah.
Yep. West Ham under 23, New York City, and Lommel SK.
So absolutely no experience.
No, and he was a crap footballer as well.
Yes, but who would you want? Maybe this is your chance. Maybe it's a bonus having somebody new instead of an old dog that's only ever lost before. Maybe it's a bit of fresh air, yeah?
It is weird that they hired him based on his career.
Yeah, what's his win rate?
Because he hasn't really had a career. As a manager, it's 50%. It's actually quite good.
Right. Okay. Well, in that case, looking at that, maybe rather than Sheffield Wednesday going just straight back up, boring, maybe MK Dons could be the team. I hate the idea of that simply because they're Wimbledon and what happened to Wimbledon, but it's not those footballers' fault.
No.
I wonder. That'd be interesting. And then next year we can go up when we're ready for it. We're certainly not now. I don't want another season of going up and straight back down again. I don't want to do a Rotherham. I don't see the point. I want to go up and stay up, at least for a couple of years. Okay, any more to say about Division 1 and any of those results? Because it was just too bog standard. The results were just obvious. And it was a bit...
Should put a bet on those as opposed to the Wycombe game, shouldn't they?
Well, yeah, actually. Yeah. Okay, moving on. Let's do... You got your pieces of paper?
Oh,
yeah. Right. Well, I have some more slides, and guess who I need to mention to say thank you? The Athletic. Thank you for your slides that are going to come up and cover our faces, which is a real bonus. I'm sure that's what you're thinking. Sorry. There was somebody wrote, "Why aren't players shooting? I blame the coaching," they said, "is being slowly coached out of the game by the likes of Guardiola, Arteta and Rodgers. It's all their fault." There was this idea that in a football match, all the shooting from distance is slowly disappearing, and you're always tired. Somebody commented about your yawning. Do you know?
Did they?
Yeah.
We do this at 8 o'clock in the evening at the end of a week. What's and
you want to do it in the morning, do you?
Absolutely not. It's all right. I'm essentially just one of the listeners of the podcast. I just get to you talk about Athletic articles.
Right.
It's good
Just
stuff.
try and not yawn. All right, everybody.
Can you hear when I yawn?
Can I hear?
Yeah, can you hear it, or is it just like you
I
can
know, I
see
can
it?
just see it.
Oh wow.
Right. So there's this idea that the modern game is sort of where you're just tapping the ball in the net, or you're getting real close. And the whole XG thing is suggesting that the managers are sort of studying so much so that they're cutting out where you shoot from. And so where all the crowd go, shoot, and nobody shoots anymore, we want to bring back shoot, and the ball gets shot. Now, we discussed last week about the 75% roughly of penalties that are scored. The quantity of outside is doing it again. Outside, you're making me feel tired. Outside the box, the quantity of goals scored from outside the box are 5 to 10%. And obviously, the nearer you get to goal, the more goals scored. No, you don't do that. Put that down, you Wally. I'm going to put one up now.
Oh.
Okay.
It's the same as what you've just been saying.
Put it down. Right. Here we go. There's your version, everybody, where you can actually see it rather than Kieran's. Kieran, you can yawn as much as you like now, mate, because nobody can see you.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
So it's obvious that managers are going to try and coach the players into not shooting. So, Kieran, looking at that chart, you can see as you get nearer the goal, the more chances are that you will score. Okay? So, players are being coached to pass rather than shoot. So, are there less shots overall, or are all the shots coming from within the box so that people are passing it to each other rather than shooting?
Well, I'd imagine it's both.
Well, look at your chart number 2.
I did beforehand.
Right.
That's why I knew the answer.
Let's explore the volume of shots and how that's actually changed since 2011 and 12. Now, if you look at that graph, you can see that there's been a real steady decline in the average of shots per game. So actually, this fan was right. We are seeing less shots at goal per game. This is non-penalty shots, by the way. There used to be 28.4 shots per game. You wouldn't believe it, having gone and watched Wycombe versus Rotherham, but there were on average 28.4 non-penalty shots per game. And now, as in last season, it's 23.9. Now that's nearly 5 shots fewer in every game. Now I know that seems like, well, it's just a game, 5 shots. I mean, that doesn't mean very much. But actually, if you look at that graph, it's obvious it's going down. I wonder how far down it can go.
I wouldn't have thought much further. I mean, the decline in the number of shots is already kind of plateauing. From 2015-16, when there was 25.5, we've only gone down to 23.9 in 6-7 seasons. So it looks like the decline's already plateauing off. I don't think you can get many less shots than there already is.
Okay, so using this is because all teams are now using sort of analytics, etc., and you've got all the coaching staff working things out of chances created and XG here and XG there. And so this is probably what is causing this. Yes, because of the coaching of the players. Well, and now we get really worried. And so does that mean we've had less goals? Well, the good news is no, actually. You would hope that in theory, if they're being coached on where to shoot from, the goals should go up. Okay, so there's been a 17% decrease in shots per game, but it's not been matched in the goals per game in that same period. So 2.4 non-penalty goals per game last season was just a slight reduction. Now, I'm going to show you the volume of non-penalty goals. If you can you see that chart, Kieran? 2.6 back in 2011-12, and it was 2.4 in last season. But it's not really. I mean, that's a straight line. On what we're actually talking about here is no big deal. So it looks like the value of it looks like their shots are of better value, even though they're having less shots. The more are actually going in the net. So it looks like they've increased the quality of shot being taken. Now, the next graph we look at, the share of shots from outside the box has also noticeably reduced. There used to be 47% of shots used to be taken outside the penalty area. Now there's 38%. Now that's still pretty high, isn't it? How many do you reckon Wycombe take outside the box? Because yesterday, again, when watching that game, you think, shoot, and they don't. Is that because they've been trained not to? Or do you think
it's not the optimal way of scoring a goal, is it? You have more chance if you play it out wide and get it closer towards the goal, don't you? Which is the idea. You're wasting an opportunity of getting into that 40% zone if you're shooting from a 5 to 10% zone.
Now, just to mention that, of course, what happened, if you look at this, the share of shots from outside the box, what's interesting is what turned up in 2013 when that suddenly went downhill, the number of shots from outside the box, was when XG turned up. And then suddenly the numbers started to crash on shots outside the box. Of course, shooting from outside the box can also be a real positive, can't it? Because it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go straight in the goal. I mean, it can create, hitting somebody's arm. It can be hit their leg and go in the other side of the goal. It can sort of cause corners. I mean, is it not worth having a go a bit more? Because you see, my argument against all these facts and figures here would be if it creates a corner. Now, be careful with corners because obviously you know what I think about corners. But say penalties, I wonder how many. You'd have to get really into this with penalties, for instance. I wonder how many penalties are created by shots from outside the goal. I would have thought a lot.
I think the argument to that would be that the primary aim of shooting from outside the box would not be to get a penalty. Hence, you're relying on a lot of external factors other than yourself and the shot you take in order for the outcome you want. Whereas if you pass it off and play it into the 40% zone, you did that on purpose. And you're not relying on any external factors other than yourself.
Do you think it takes these teams a bit more skill?
Yeah, because defending's got better. Footballers consistently get better physically and tactically. It's an ever evolving game. It's just we perceive some things as being crap or not as good as we should perceive it. Whereas actually, if it was improving all the time, I'd argue.
Okay, looking at the next one, which players average the longest distance shots? I thought this was quite fun. Would you have put Charlie Adam as
he had a couple of shots from the halfway line, so that might have bumped his up. But I mean, all of those others.
I mean, just to mention, these figures are the average distance that he takes a shot from.
Mm.
So every time he takes a shot, what's his average distance he's away from goal?
I mean,
shoots.
You can see that all of these players are pretty much centre midfielders. I mean, you have Van Aanholt and Bale towards the bottom there who aren't, but they're all centre mids. They're all lingering in and around the edge of the area, and so more often than not, this is their way to try and get shots off.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. I mean, none of them are a particular surprise. I mean, as soon as you see Shelby up there, you think, oh yeah, of course. And De Bruyne, of course, is getting himself a real sort of, everybody knows De Bruyne can hit them from afar. I'd be interested to see what his average goal tally is. And then if you look at the next one, which players average the shortest distance? Oh, look, there goes Jesus. That doesn't surprise me either. But the surprise, there's a few surprise ones in there. For me, they're surprise. Any for you?
No, I mean,
no.
There's a couple of players that you think of as being very good with long shots, but 90%, well, all of these players thrive on very close range shooting. But do you notice that all the Arsenal forwards are up the top? You got Giroud, Lacazette, Aubameyang, Welbeck, Van Persie. They're all in the top 8.
So that's been trained. They've been trained to get as near to the goal as possible, haven't they?
It's an Arsenal thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, Giroud is just headers. That's why he's there.
Yeah.
Sterling, I'm surprised, is as far out as he is, because he's normally there just to literally tap it in.
Yeah.
It's
good point about Arsenal. Yeah, I never thought about that.
The others seem pretty standard. So you got Jesus at the top, Costa, Vardy, Aguero, Mane, Salah, etc. Yeah. Suarez, I'm surprised, is kind of on there because I would have thought he'd shoot from further out. Or he did a lot anyway. But yeah, the shot from anywhere, didn't he? So.
Right. I'm not going to use the other maps other than I will use this next one, which is what was the average shot distance in the Premier League? So here you go again about Arsenal. Well spotted. Up sitting top of the table there back in 2011 and 12. Interesting that if you look at the teams at the bottom compared with the teams at the top, you've got the successful so-called names at the top of that era, weren't they? Who was?
Yeah.
Who, I haven't got in front of me.
I think
I haven't
United
got the
won
league
the league.
table of 2011 and 12.
United won the league.
Right. So,
or City did. I can't remember. City or United.
You've got the so-called successful names sat at the top, and the so-called teams going down sat at the bottom. Interesting, because that would suggest the skill and the goals going in closer to goal, whereas the shot distance are by the teams that aren't as good.
You might find also that the top teams have an awful lot more possession, and so the teams they're playing are just camped on the edge of their box, and you can't get long shots off.
But what about Wycombe? Do we tap them in or do we belt them in?
Tap them.
Far? We tap them in.
Mm.
So we'd be top of the table, would we? Do we have any long shooters, really?
I mean, Wings scored a couple the other week, but we don't normally.
No.
Jacobson maybe with free kicks, but...
No, we don't. I mean, the ones that do have a go are Grimmer and McCarthy, and usually bung them about 30 yards above the...
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't usually score them, do they? They just have a go. And then if we take a look at what the average shot distance in the Premier League last season... West Ham had a good time last season, and they're sat there up the top. Other teams up the top were, I'm looking just basically in the top half, sort of roughly. Were there you got your Brighton. Did they have a good season last season?
They're okay.
Chelsea, City, Leeds were okay mid-table. Liverpool, Arsenal, and then at the bottom you've got your Burnley, West Brom. See, I suppose West Brom, Wolves, Fulham, and there sits Manchester United and Newcastle, which I thought was rather interesting. Manchester United. Maybe there's your problem with Manchester United. What do you reckon?
Somehow I don't think this is the be-all and end-all for United. I think there's other things. Yeah.
But I think that chart does tell you something, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About the skill of and the wild shooting from outside the box. This doesn't just apply, I might add, to the Premier League. This applies across the sort of Spanish, Italian, French. What's the other one? German league. The same applies that these are changing from all of those divisions, and the goal scoring is getting closer and closer to goal. It obviously can't get so close. It's got to come to, there's only so close you can get to the goal, and that's the goal line. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. Is there anything you want to say about this?
Makes sense.
It makes sense.
Yeah. I would bear with the ones suggesting that the top teams have shots from closer in, because the other teams do literally camp on the edge of their box. But then there might also be a thing of decision making and patience. Maybe the top teams have better decision making and patience. I don't know.
Well, I guess also if they're going to get chances. So if you end up with, if you're if you're a top team and you're getting 10 chances, then you can put one away and win the game. If you're a lower team and get one chance, you've got to bang it in wherever you're standing.
Yeah.
You've broken that, you've got through the defence of the other team, and you don't hang around. Here's your chance, have a go. Snag is, it's only 1 in 10 is going to go in. And if you've only got one chance, that doesn't give you, and it's only 10% of one, you're only going to win 1 in every 10 games. So that doesn't, whereas if you've got 10 chances and you're putting in 40% of your goals and you get 10 chances inside that box, isn't that why Manchester City and Liverpool win?
Near enough, isn't it? I mean, City especially, like, that's why I'm surprised Sterling had shots from so far out, because he literally just taps everything in.
I know Jesus is in the top of the table.
City are so good at just finding little pockets of space so that they can score from in there. I don't know how they do it, but
so in the end, guys, what we're saying is when you shout at your team, shoot, what you're saying is we're not very good and we're desperate, rather than pass is what maybe we should get used to doing, shouting pass, so that we can get nearer that goal line and stand a bigger chance of scoring a goal.
True that.
Okay. Moving on, just the one, because we will not be carrying on forever tonight. We're going to have a quickie look then at the football over the weekend from Premier League, and then we'll call it a night, because poor old Kieran's been travelling all day.
For 2 hours.
Yeah, going home from here. They came home to celebrate my birthday and his brother's birthday. How nice, eh? How nice.
Did you enjoy?
Did I enjoy it? I had a great time. Thank you, Kieran.
Good lad.
And next week, you'll be hearing and listening to what they bought me. One of the things they bought me for my birthday, which is a Steve Hackett CD that came out last year. I'll play that next week. Okay. First of all, let's start with yesterday's. And that was, you can say what you want as we go through. I've got to find it first. Here we go. Only 3 games. Match of the day. Gary Lineker. What a waste of time.
Yeah, not a lot.
Why do they employ him? There's only 3 games. Brighton 0, Liverpool 2. Bog standard, wasn't it?
Not a lot happens in that one either.
Dominate.
Yeah, Brighton were never going to score. When Liverpool got 1, that was pretty much it. Diaz looks very good again. He looks like the best of the front 3 at the moment. Mane and Salah haven't really recovered from AFCON.
No. Salah, who thought he was God, is starting to find maybe actually he doesn't have a pedestal anymore. And can he just demand his money? Because actually Liverpool can afford not to sign him, can't they?
It's going to be very interesting, because I think that the owners or whoever's in charge of that may have been partly banking on Salah not doing as well as he had done at the start of the season. If he'd continued his form throughout the whole season, then no doubt he probably should have got near enough what he wanted. But he's struggling a bit now.
He is. He's having to score penalties to get his goals up.
And he is 29, 30 years old.
Yeah.
So from what I can gather, what I'm guessing he would be a 4-year contract. And on the amount of money that it would be, if he's getting paid that at the age of 33, 34, it's very clear why Liverpool would not want to do that. And I think the fans may have to remember that, because obviously everyone's just like, just give him what he wants. He's playing unbelievable.
It's this attitude of fans You got to keep him. You got to pay him. I'm thinking, yeah, you do it then. You know,
it's. I can understand where everyone's coming from because there was a period of time in which Salah was literally unplayable, um, and he like the records do speak for themselves as well. Like he has scored 20 goals again in a season, and he has scored 8 in the Champions League already. Like it's understandable, but is that going to carry on for the next 3 or 4 seasons? Don't know. At the level that he had been playing at the start of the season, and quite frankly, if he doesn't play beyond as good as Diaz, then why should he get the
what
absolute
about
of what he
Jota,
wants?
Diaz, and you need one more, and you can get rid of your other 3? And how ridiculous! You wouldn't have said that last year, that you could have. Liverpool might be able to, lose that front 3, and they'd be fine. They'd still be as good as they are. But they can, can't they?
I mean, Jota, Diaz, and I mean, Liverpool can pluck out anyone from anywhere, can't they? I mean, who I didn't know Diaz really was before we signed him, and now he looks better than Mane and Salah.
Yeah, crazy, isn't it?
I mean
he is good. And working on that, Diaz, how the fiddles did that goalkeeper stay on the pitch? Not even a yellow card.
Makes
dangerous play.
VAR had a bit of a quiet couple of weeks, but this weekend it's been awful. Yes. I don't know whether you would have seen the one against Newcastle.
I haven't seen that one. I did see it get it right again with Arsenal penalty.
Yeah, they got it right with that one.
Took a long time, and why I don't know, because as soon as you could see the ball hitting the guy's arm, Leicester, and just slightly changing angle, I thought that made it quite straightforward, obvious. Look at it once and that's sorted. But they carried on and on and on and on. I'm thinking, oh, goodness sake, hurry up. But
and similarly with Newcastle, they should have played a penalty. Newcastle, they got quite unlucky in that game.
Didn't see that.
I mean, and this goalkeeper, as we said last night, it was very similar to Van Dijk Pickford, in which a situation's happened. It's maybe, it's not a penalty, obviously, because we've scored a goal, etc., and we've got an advantage from it. But how is it not a red card beyond that? He's kicked him in the chest.
Baffling. It does. I just don't get it. Brentford 2, Burnley 0. Well,
Brentford looked all right, to be fair, obviously from watching the match of the day.
Tony was brilliant.
Yeah, Tony was really good. Eriksen got a really nice assist for his first goal as well. Burnley had a couple of chances, and then McNeil did in the first half, where McNeil looked exciting at one point, and you would have thought that one of the Premier League teams would snap him up. But he misses a lot of chances, and so not really convinced anymore. Their red card also, I don't think, was a red card. It seemed very harsh, Burnley, for the penalty in the last minute.
Collins, what did he do?
It was just Tony was running through on goal, and they were kind of shoulder to shoulder, and then Tony goes down. Like it's a penalty, but a red card was very harsh, I thought. It just didn't need to happen because it was the 94th minute. So I think that was a bit silly by the ref.
A bit silly by the ref.
And then we got United versus Spurs.
Yes. Yeah, well, this was two teams that are, Tottenham turn up every other game, and for quite a long time, United hasn't turned up at all. This time, did they? Well, Fred turned up as per normal. I mean, they don't like him, United fans, I don't think, but that's because he isn't spectacular. But he does do a decent job where he is. We won't go on about United because everybody does.
Well, Sky have done that, and the number of videos I've had come up of Roy Keane and Gary Neville having to go at United, despite them winning, is incredible.
I know. I don't understand that. But
Maguire scored an own goal. That's good.
Yeah, that was excellent. I thought Maguire was excellent, that goal. I think he should be forward, put him up front.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know what we think of him. Ronaldo, well, you can't argue with that. He's top goal scorer in FIFA, isn't he?
A good top goal scorer of all time.
Ever? Yeah.
Just for everything.
Yeah, so I did see somebody say surely that's Pele, but nobody actually recorded how many goals Pele scored or for which were friendlies and which ones weren't. They just went on what Pele said he had scored. And so,
to be fair, I think it's a bit different scoring it in the Brazilian league year after year compared to the English and the Spanish leagues. I'd argue. Anyway.
What I think is interesting about this, though, I mean, there's no question. You can argue for and against Ronaldo. Should he be there? Shouldn't he be there? What's his attitude? Isn't he difficult to manage? What does it do to the dressing room? Blah, 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 blah. Yes, we can discuss that on here every now and again, etc., etc. What you can't change, he's a bloody better goal scorer than Kane is, though, isn't he?
I don't think anyone's arguing that, to be fair.
He was brilliant, but he's a loner, isn't he?
Well, in terms of how good he is.
In a team. He's not a team player here, but he is a winner.
Yeah. I mean, I think if there's one performance that probably showed it was probably this one. Every chance that you saw a match today, it stemmed through Ronaldo.
Yeah. Well, do you know how many chances they actually had?
Probably
0.92 expected goals, and he scored a hat trick.
Yeah.
I mean that's crazy figures. That a player scores a hat trick, even though it was 0.9 expected
for the whole
goals for the whole team, and he walks away with a ball. Mad. And then we look at a player in that team like Rashford, and I believe he's talking about moving then.
It'd be very interesting to see where he's go. Because I'm not.
I think he should. I think he should bog off to Germany or something. Go and learn his trade.
I mean, logistically, I don't think he can go to Liverpool or City because he's played for United. Chelsea, I don't think would suit him, and they can't even buy anyone anyway.
He's got to get away from it all.
Yeah, but then, as well, I'm not sure he could because of like his charity stuff he does here. I'm not sure he'd be willing to leave it, but I think in terms of his football career, he should go to I don't even know, Dortmund, maybe. I don't think Spain would suit him. Italy might, like a Roma, Napoli kind of thing. But I think he'd find it very difficult to go anywhere.
Can I just one step back about Burnley, because we'll get to the bottom team shortly. Do you know Burnley? A couple of years ago, they were in the bottom in the first after the first half of the season, and they were in real trouble, Burnley. But they'd still got all their other 6 rivals in that fight in relegation to play. And when they added up their games against the 6 rivals, home and away, Burnley played 12 and they won 8 of them and picked up 27 points off of their bottom teams. Okay, which was obviously far more than all the others, and so they beat Huddersfield, Brighton, Southampton, Fulham, Cardiff, etc. This year, that bottom 6 that they're playing, so far they've played 8 out of those 12 games, and in fact they've only won 1 of them.
They've only won 3 games all season, haven't they?
Yeah. So they've only actually picked up 6 points out of 8 games off the bottom 6 other teams in that relegation fight. That's why Burnley are going down this time. But anyway, apart from that, I just thought I'd get that in while,
You just want to go at Burnley.
Yeah. Tottenham then. Tottenham in that game. Where were Tottenham? What's wrong with Son? Because even he hasn't been around this season very much either, has he?
No.
Is that because they're a team, Kane and Son, that without one, the other don't work?
I mean, both were there. Signed a new contract this year as well, Son. You feel like he's just wasting his time there. And it can't be easy having the motivation to go year in, year out at a club where they're still nowhere near winning a trophy. I mean, that's partly down to just the brilliance of City and Liverpool, but they are nowhere near regardless.
Well, they're not going to get in the top 4, are they? They're sitting 8th at the moment. I mean, they don't stand a hope, do they?
No. I mean, it might be silly to kind of say that because you could argue that there's no point playing for any of the other teams if Liverpool and City are doing what they are. But I think people are maybe overestimating who Spurs are and what Spurs should do. They're Spurs. They've never been anywhere near winning the league in goodness knows how long, and all of a sudden we're having a go at them when they don't get top 4. It's like, well, they were never near that before, so why should they be now? I guess because they had, Kane, Son, Pochettino, and they got very close to win the Champions League and all that sort of thing. So they might be not making the most of their, good period, but I don't think they're just not cut out to make top 4 or anything like that.
Right. Well, talking of sort of, Spurs, Pochettino and all that, and Manchester United, why do people presume Pochettino will be at United? Do they think he's the best manager in Europe? Because I don't see that myself. He's never actually won anything, has he?
No.
That doesn't, and yet he's got to the final, and he's now got one of the best teams in Europe that can't actually get past the quarterfinals.
It's because of so that he made Southampton Spurs what they are today. He's the reason Spurs are talked about in the kind of top 4, win the Premier League conversation, and he did very well at Southampton. He's got his big chance at a big club, but it's a strange club in that you're not really fighting for your league. You're fighting for the Champions League and you get one chance at that. And he had it in the palm of his hands. And then Real Madrid somehow pull it out of the bag. Would he be good for United? I think he might be, but I think it's a risk. I'm not sure it's a guarantee. And I think United at this point need a guarantee because they've had so many years of a no guarantee. I think it'd be a very big risk if they took him, but it had the potential to work out. But then the problem they have at United now is controlling players and players' attitudes and making sure they play as a team. Well, look at how he's done that at PSG with Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe.
Yeah,
don't get the impression he does that.
Here's just a few interesting facts and figures here. I quite like this one. Rashford has only completed 90 minutes in only 2 of United's 38 games in all competitions. And that was away at Norwich and Newcastle. That was before Christmas. That's amazing. He has, after all, scored 5 goals in 24 appearances for United this season, whereas Cristiano Ronaldo, at 37 years old, has 15 after playing 30 games. And there's a slight difference there, isn't there? He's actually played 1,269 minutes for United in a variety of roles, and his scoring rate is 1 goal every 254 minutes.
Rashford?
Yeah.
That's pretty poo, isn't it?
Not good, is it?
Especially for who he was made out to be.
Whereas Ronaldo, for everything, of course, is damn sight more. It's every 165 minutes.
And
that's for country included. Does he get enough time? Does he get enough chances? I think he's had enough chances. You can only stay young and give that as your excuse for so long. He always looks so sad to me.
He definitely has done recently.
He don't look happy bunny, does he? No.
It's almost like at the moment he has an expectation to be a good footballer and he's not meeting it. He didn't before. Like when he burst onto the scene and had his first couple of seasons.
I said to your mum that, he was told when he was 10 he was brilliant. He was told when he was 12 he was brilliant. 14 he was brilliant. 16 he was brilliant. He turned up on the scene at United and everybody said he's brilliant. He's going to be the next best thing since sliced bread. And he's brilliant. And now he believes he's brilliant. And he isn't. He's good.
No.
He's good. But not
I mean, this is another thing with United is the lack of improvement in players. Like Rashford has lost out on a lot of development in his career because he's been at United and they just haven't learned. Like at Liverpool and City, you can see the amount of improvement that players go through, like Jota or I don't know, Mahrez even for City, to be fair. Whereas United, I mean, we know Fred has had a little bit of an improvement recently, but you can't say any of them have continuously got better since they've been there.
No.
And Rashford certainly hasn't. He's a 24-year-old who's still 18 in terms of in a footballing sense.
Yeah. Here's the last bit. We'll move on to the other teams. Antonio Conte willing to extend Tottenham contract if club shows vision. What's vision?
I'm not sure it will.
No, I don't know what he's after exactly. Vision. Chelsea beat Newcastle 1-0. We know through a little dodgy bit of refereeing there. Should have been a draw. Chelsea seem to manage that, but they're fighting for nothing.
Yeah,
fighting for their lives. In fact, they're fighting to be able to come up with the money to go to away games.
Yeah, I'm sure they can drive.
Yeah, I was amazed when they said we've only got £20,000 for each away trip. They're not allowed to spend more than 20. I was thinking, what do they do? Take a jet each or something? I mean, bloody hell, £20,000 for an away game. What are they doing?
You'd be surprised.
I'd love to.
There's probably more into it than you think.
But. I mean, bloody hell, it must be a smart breakfast. That's all I can say. I'd love to know what that 20 grand, because the manager, Tuchel or whatever his name is, he made some comment about, if it comes down to me driving a 7-seater bus. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, I get the point that you're prepared to really scum it. I'd love to know how he's going to get the team on a 7-seater bus, but that'd be a bit.
I think it was more than 7, wasn't it?
But I think no, that's what he said, 7-seater. But I thought that I just thought, oh yeah, I can just see those players going without. Maybe a bit of their wages maybe might help. I just could not believe that. But anyway, so whether Chelsea, yeah, we'll see how long Chelsea last anyway. Everton 0, Wolves 1. Lampard, we said he would be useless.
Turns out we were right.
I don't think that's worth an argument, is it? I mean, he had a player sent off as well, didn't he, after 78 minutes? Rather finish that off. Their expected goals was 0.3. Not a hope. Well, you get Lampard, and it didn't take much to figure out he's not going to answer your problems, is he? On the other hand, Leeds beat Norwich 2-1.
Just
Scored,
Norwich equalised
scored in the 94th minute, didn't they?
Yeah.
Mind you, on the other side, Norwich did score in the 91st minute for an equaliser. So that probably. So can you imagine? They're the sort of games you hate, aren't they?
Yeah.
As a Norwich fan, that's the sort of game you hate, where you go absolutely ballistic on the 91st minute, and then they go up the other end and score. That must be very, very annoying. Not, mind you, it wouldn't make a lot of difference if Norwich picked up a point, would it?
No, they're down already. I'd like to see Leeds stay up and see what they can do next season. So I'm quite happy with that. I watched the highlights and they deserved it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the first goal Leeds scored was just a boot over the top, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Basically, it was a boot over the top. I'm sat here looking at it now, and that was a shocker.
Well, as was their second, to be honest with you.
It's just yeah. Well, we'll leave them to go take one of the places anyway. Who else we got on there? I hope Leeds stay up. I think they can stay up. Southampton. What has happened to Southampton? Do you know the Southampton manager is the favourite to get sacked next? Lost to Watford. Who?
I think that'd be harsh if they sacked him. To be honest with you, he did a pretty good job at the start of the season. He's beaten quite a few good teams, but no, you shouldn't really lose to Watford.
No, and Southampton are 10th after all, and surely they'd be happy with 10th in the league if they finished. Yeah. West Ham beat your mate Aston Villa. Ben Rama.
Yeah,
any good?
Pretty good, didn't he? He set up Yarmolenko's goal. Nice little moment for Yarmolenko. Obviously, he's Ukrainian. Pretty sweet moment.
Yeah, he hasn't scored for donkeys, has he?
No. It looked like West Ham deserved it, to be fair. Rice played a big part in their second goal. And Villa had a couple of opportunities, but may well have not done enough to get anything out of the game. To be fair, like that's a game that could go either way. Aston Villa, West Ham, they're pretty even, I think, in terms of quality.
They are in trouble though, West Ham now, because two of their players went off injured. Creswell and Antonio actually had to be subbed, both of them, for injuries. So
both of them are pretty important to their system as well. So that'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
Yeah. Next one was Arsenal 2, Leicester 0. Well, that was always going to be. I mean, Leicester aren't very good anymore. They're definitely going down rather than up. Arsenal looked flipping good. I watched that. Arsenal look excellent. I like Arsenal. I think they look young, enthusiastic, and loving it.
Yeah. They have a lot of things in place for the future to suggest that they could go on to be a
breath of fresh air is what I would describe Arsenal as. That's fun football. I mean, where the 1-0 Arsenal went to, that ain't there anymore. They good. I like them.
I think they're the fun Arsenal that will be fun against most of pretty much all of the other teams, but they will get smashed by teams like Chelsea, Liverpool, and City, I think.
Do you think?
I mean, they have done this season, Arsenal. So I think they've got a little bit of a way to go in that sense, but they're still doing very well considering what their team actually is. Because on paper, it's not a convincing team, but they're doing very well considering who they are.
Well, they've won their last 5 matches. They beat Wolves, Brentford, Wolves again, Watford and Leicester. I know they're not the most difficult teams, no. But they had a horrible little run just before then, didn't they? Where they lost to City, as you said. They then got knocked out of the FA Cup by Forest, drew with Liverpool in the EFL, and then lost to Liverpool in the EFL and drew with Burnley. But they seem to come in patches. If you look at their table, they seem to win in 4 or 5 games, then lose 3 or 4, then win the next 5, then lose the next 3 or 4. So they do it in patches. That means they're on for a loss next week. So if you want money, here's your chance, because they're playing Liverpool. They've had their little win rate.
Yeah.
If you look at how it works in their batches. So put your money on Wednesday night is the game. Wednesday night, Arsenal versus Liverpool. Everybody, here you go. And it'll be Arsenal, I reckon, will score. Looking at this other, I reckon you got for 0 or 1 on their losing rate. And then you got Liverpool. So I reckon 3-1 to Liverpool. There you go. What do you reckon?
2-0.
2-0. Okay, we'll finish there, other than to mention that I will see Kieran again next week because I'm going to Portsmouth to go and see if we can play Portsmouth. And great, we've got a win, can't stand Portsmouth. When I go to Portsmouth, we need to advertise this and give Kieran's address out to any Portsmouth fans to go round and beat him up.
Please don't.
And
I will die.
Yeah. Prediction. I mean, of course, Wycombe have actually got another game on Tuesday, I think, Fleetwood, which I can't go to. I'll be at work. We should beat Fleetwood.
Hope so.
So let's go for Portsmouth. Harder to predict. Kieran, what's your money going on against Portsmouth?
2-2.
2-2. Well, yeah. I am desperate to beat Portsmouth. I want to beat Portsmouth. I'm going for 2-0. I'm going for 2-0.
I think we'll be lucky not to concede.
Do you? Well, I think we're getting the hang of that. So, with that, there's our predictions. Write your predictions underneath. Kieran can now yawn and go to bed. Whoa. And I will yawn, go and watch Match of the Day, at least get through the first 3 games and then fall asleep. So with that, everybody, again, we'll finish with that music by the Anchoress. Remember, information written underneath. If by any chance they don't play it, it isn't the Anchoress. If Scope don't let me play the album. Okay, thanks very much. Kieran, say goodbye. And I'll say goodbye. Goodbye.